Now, VLAN Trunking Protocol, VTP. This is a Cisco proprietary protocol that allows switches to share and synchronize VLAN configuration. You get a network that has 40 or 50 switches in it. How much of a pain is it going to be to go to every switch and plug in the information about every VLAN on your network? If you had your VLAN, you would have to go out to every switch on your network and enter the VLAN information if you didn't have VTP. VTP allows you to configure it once and forget it. It gets propagated to all of the rest of the switches. It's a layer 2 messaging protocol. It doesn't rely on IP addressing or layer 3 or routing. It operates on layer 2. What it does is periodically it sends VTP messages, and if there's a change on your network, it will send that VTP message immediately. Vtv modes. There are 3 different types of VTP modes. You have server, client, and transparent. The only ones that you can make changes on are server and transparent. So, if you have a switch set as a client, you can't go in and make VLAN configuration changes on it. You can only do that on a server or a transparent. The difference between the server and the transparent, if you do a change on the transparent switch, that's the only switch that information is going to get set on. It does not propagate to the rest of the switches. If you do it on a server, it propagates to every other client and server on the network. The transparent switches don't listen to VTP. VTP can't be disabled on a Cisco switch. If you want to basically disable it, you have to set the switch into transparent mode. VTP operation. Pretty easy. What you do is you create a VLAN on a server switch. VTP server distributes VLAN configuration changes through VTP messages over ISL or 802.1q. Servers and clients send periodic VTP messages every 5 minutes just to make sure, hey, do you have the latest updates? Yeah, I'm good. And it sends it on out and propagates it across your network. Now, when a new trunk is developed, or you bring up a new trunk on your network, they can immediately send a VTP message saying, hey, tell me about the VLANs on your network. Client and server switches. They process VTP messages, they update VTP configuration if the VLAN configuration database revision number is higher than what they currently have. Every time you make a change to your VLAN information, it's kept in a VLAN database. And the VLAN database is assigned a number. Every time you make a change, that number goes up by 1. Very simple. That's how you know if you have the latest or not. You get a message saying, hey, I have VTP database 10. And another switch goes, oh, he has VTP database version 10. I only have 9. I need to listen to this update and update my VLAN database. 3 types of VTP messages. We have summary advertisements, which lists revision number, domain name, and other information. It doesn't actually give any VLAN information. And it happens every 5 minutes. It's basically saying, hey, I have this version of the database. Now, if it needs to, it actually listens to a subset advertisement, and that is what actually contains your VLAN information. Advertisement requests. Like I said, if you bring up a new trunk port on a switch, that switch can go, oh, I need VLAN information. Instead of waiting for the 5 minutes, I'm just going to go out and say, hey, somebody give me VLAN information, and a switch comes back and gives it to you. 3 requirements for VTP to work between switches. If you don't do this, it's not going to work. The link between the switches must be operating as a VLAN trunk, either ISL or 802.1q. And they has to be, they all have to be, the link between the 2 switches has to be ISL or 802.1q. You can't have one on one and one on the other. The case-sensitive Vtg domain name must be the same. By default, there is no domain name. So if you just fire up switches, they all have the same because they're all blank. Also, if you put a VTP password you have to have that VTP password on every switch, and it has to be the same on every switch. Vtv Domain Names. They allow multiple groups of switches within your network to have different VLAN sets. If you have, different divisions within your IT department that they want to control information on this network, another group wants to control information on another network, you can set up different domain names on the same physical network. So you don't have to run two networks again. Now, only the switches with the appropriate domain name are going to get updates for that appropriate domain name. Switches not in the VTP domain name will ignore VTP messages from that domain. Vtv Transparent Mode. Things you need to know about that. Gives autonomy from other switches. So you have your network engineer. He throws a switch on your network so he can experiment and learn and play. He probably is going to want to set up his switch in transparent mode. That way, if he makes changes to VLANs and is playing around with on that switch, there's no way that that is going to get propagated onto the network and blow up your VTP. Configure VLANs on these switches. It doesn't pull VLAN information from any other switch, and it will not send out that information to other switches. It never updates the VLAN database from VTP. But what it will do, it'll allow VTP messages to pass through. So if it gets a VTP message, and there's a switch on the other side of it that is configured for the VTP domain, it doesn't update its database, but it will send that message on to the other switch that does. So it politely says, okay, I'm going to ignore it, but here you can have the message. And it never creates VTP messages and never floods your network with that information. So when you make a VTP change on that switch, it doesn't tell the entire world about it. Storing VLAN information. All of your VLAN information is stored in a file called vlan.dat. Now, if you get a switch, say you buy a used switch from some company or whatever, refurbished, most of these guys miss deleting vlan.dat. Now, if you throw your switch on the network and there are no domain names configured, no passwords configured, and that switch has a higher revision number than what is on your network, guess what's going to happen? This switch that you brought in, even though you've erased the configuration off of it, it will get on your network and go, hey, I have this revision number, which is higher than yours. All the switches on your network are going to dump their VLAN database and take its, and your network will come crashing to the ground. And everybody's going to throw up their hands, screaming, and chaos. And yeah, it's going to be bad. So this is one of the big reasons why you want to have domain names and passwords. Because most people don't delete that. If you do want to wipe out the VLAN information on it, just delete vlan.dat out of your file system on the switch. It must use the show command to see VLAN information. You can't just open up vlan.dat and see what's in there. You have to use the show command. Your ready startup command, again, doesn't remove the VLAN configuration. You have to issue the delete /vlan.dat to get rid of it. Transparent mode switches store VLAN configuration in both the running config and the vlan.dat. Vtv Pruning. Now, if you have a network with a lot of trunks, not every switch on the other side of the trunk is going to have every VLAN on it. So you want to enable Vtv Pruning, and what that does is it basically pays attention to what VLANs are on the switch on the other side of the link, or what's on it on itself, and it just won't send the unneeded information or unneeded broadcasts across that link. And again, it'll make your network much more efficient. But if you don't have it, Cisco will flood all VLAN broadcasts across all of your trunks, kind of defeating the purpose of creating those trunks in the VLAN. So you want to turn Vtv Pruning on to make things more efficient. Can use allowed VLAN list on each trunk to say, hey, these are the VLANs that are allowed across my trunk limit. Vtv Pruning allows VTP to dynamically determine, which switches do and do not need VLANs, or VLAN messages sent across a trunk. And then my next part, I will be giving you the fabulous VLAN configuration demo. So we're going to take a break here while I set up for that.